Western media talks about Trump, Biden and Ukraine, but not so much explanation is given on why his son was getting this $50,000 per month. Since I'm originally from Ukraine, I decided to make this video to explain you the whole situation in details. According to the media, you all probably know that Biden's son Hunter was appointed as the board of director of Ukrainian private natural gas production company called Burisma, and he was getting $50,000 per month as a salary for a pretty long time. And all this happened while his father Joe Biden was assigned by US government to help Ukraine to fight the corruption. Let's start our investigation from the beginning and look closely to the company Burisma, specifically who is the owner of one. And the owner is a guy named Mykola Zlochevsky. You can go on Wikipedia, and what's interesting about him, he's quite rich. The net worth of this guy is actually more than 500 million US dollars. Wow! Oh, and you can look at his picture, quite a stereotypical Eastern European guy who knows how to make money, lots of money. You might think this guy might have invented something like Facebook in Ukraine, or maybe founded the coffee chain like Starbucks. No, absolutely not. In Ukraine, things are simpler. If you know the right guys, you can be rich. Ukraine became independent from Soviet Union in the 90s, and this was the most criminal and corrupted period in Ukrainian contemporary history. And this is the period when Mr. Zlochevsky created his first company called Infox. Mainly, this company was selling some petrol in Ukraine. Later in 2002, he created Burisma, a private natural oil gas production company. In the same time, he became a member of parliament and eventually joined the party of Mr. Yanukovych, which is the evil and corrupted president of Ukraine, who served from 2010 till 2014, when he was overthrown by revolution. According to unconfirmed information, Mr. Zlochevsky was a huge financial donor of the presidential campaign of Mr. Yanukovych in 2010, and when Yanukovych won, he decided to give a little present to Mr. Zlochevsky and actually gave him a position in the ministry. So he became a minister of ecology and natural resources. What can be better if you own the company which digs the natural gas out of Ukrainian soil, and in the same time you're a minister who's assigning and approve the places of dwelling for the same company. And as you can imagine, during that 2 years of his being a minister, Burisma became a truly successful company. In fact, it became a second large privately owned gas company in Ukraine, and now it's the largest one in Ukraine. Unfortunately, Ukrainian people got tired of outrageous corruption of Mr. Yanukovych, and he decided to overthrow the guy in 2014. Yanukovych, along with his friends, had to flee the country and go to Russia. Mr. Zlochevsky, although he was not involved in politics during that period, knew that his company was built on the corrupted regime of the former president, so he had a pretty hard decision what to do. Option number one, he could have fled the country, potentially losing lots of money. Option number two, he could have paid some money back to the newly elected government to make some protections against further investigation against his company. The problem with this solution is that the newly elected Ukrainian government promised to fight the corruption, so it's kind of risky. Option number three is to create an ingenious schema which only came from the mind of Eastern European businessmen. Basically, he decided to invite some famous international people to the board of directors of Burisma and pay them some significant amount of money, assuming that they will provide some kind of protection in the future in case it's needed. I know it sounds a little bit crazy if you're from Western world, but it's how things works in Ukraine. Like, you have a company, you have an important people around it, no one will touch it. For example, a former president of Poland, Aleksander Kwaśniewski, was invited to this board, as well as the president of Joe Biden, Hunter. Basically, Hunter Biden was getting $50,000 per month for doing absolutely nothing, just to serve as a potential protection in case of any further investigation against Burisma company. So why Joe Biden? When the revolution in Ukraine happened, US was an active player to restore the government in Ukraine. And Joe Biden, back then a vice president of United States, was coming to Ukraine a dozen times to help the country fight the corruption. He has even spoken in front of Ukrainian parliament.
I never tell another man or another nation or another woman what's in their interest. But I can tell you, you cannot name me a single democracy in the world where the cancer of corruption is prevalent.
Also, he had several meetings with the newly elected President Poroshenko.
And resolute efforts to root out the cancer of corruption.
Later, the new Ukrainian authority assigned a new general prosecutor of Ukraine, Mr. Shocking. His mission was to fight the corruption in Ukraine. And this guy started to investigate Burisma company. Probably he was doing this not to punish the company, but just to get some bribes. The reality in Ukraine that this is a very corrupted country and general prosecutors are extremely corrupted people. And this guy was no more or less corrupted than any of the guys who was in his position before or after. In 2016, US wanted to give Ukraine a $1 billion loan, and Mr. Biden was in charge of negotiations. He had one requirement to Ukrainian government: to fire the general prosecutor. And we have a video from Biden talking about this.
Going over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, I'm not going to, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired.
One more time, Joe Biden was pushing Ukrainian government to fire general prosecutor in order to get a loan, while this general prosecutor was investigating the case of Burisma company when his son Hunter was a member of the board. Just a couple of days ago, Joe Biden talked about $1 billion loan again.
The idea that someone would call a head of a foreign state ahead of time, withhold significant military aid that's badly needed in order to prevent the Russian separatists who are in Ukraine from taking over Ukraine.
Oops, I think he's talking about the current loan from the Trump administration to Ukraine, and now Ukraine desperately needs some money to fight Russia when the conflict with Russia is actually in a dormant stage. And in 2016, when he was in an active stage, he wasn't morally obliged to give a $1 billion loan. Son of a bitch. To summarize this little investigation, now you know the whole story. Is it corruption? Yes. Is it conflict of interest? Yes. Is it punishable by Ukrainian law or US law? According to my knowledge, absolutely not. This is a very new and smart form of corruption which happens only in Eastern Europe. And according to my knowledge, we don't have any legal base to punish this kind of corruption. But you got the point. Now maybe you're upset of what Biden did and you obviously don't want to vote for Trump. So I found a perfect candidate. This guy is a Republican which has all democratic values in his head. The name of this guy is Joe Walsh.
Russia interfering in our 2016 election. And we find out this week that this guy in the White House asked another country to interfere in our 2020 election. Brianna, it's impeachable. We have a president who doesn't have any respect for the rule of law.
Former Congressman Joe Walsh,
Yes.
Thank you so much.
This guy is perfect. He wants to impeach Trump. CNN likes him. And he looks like a very honest guy. But wait a minute, I've seen him somewhere. He wasn't Who is America, and he was advertising guns for underage children.
The intensive 3-week kindergarten course introduces specially selected children from 12 to 4 years old to pistols, rifles, semi-automatics, and a rudimentary knowledge of mortars. In less than a month, a first grader can become a first grenader.
As you can see, all the politicians are fake, and it's important to constantly remind yourself about it. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and share it. This is a very new YouTube channel, and I plan to add more videos to talk about the stories which traditional media tries to omit.